Hi, we're going to go ahead and get started with some content. Today, we're going to be discussing imperialism in Africa. So first, imperialism is when a strong country takes over takes over everything in a weak country. Sometimes we can call this colonization. We can call this territories. It's when somebody takes over somebody else. And imperialism is going to be a main theme in the 1800s and 1900s as a bunch of countries who happen to all be European and the United States are going to think that it's okay to take over other countries in different places. So today we're going to look at how they do that in Africa. Now, it's important to know what Africa was like before the Europeans got there. We talked a little bit about it. The main point to remember is that Africa is absolutely huge. Africa, even today, is a lot bigger than what people think. There are 54 African countries, and if we were in class together, I would ask you to name them. So I'm going to pause and think of how many African countries you can name. All right, did you get like 3? South Africa, Egypt, sometimes people say the Congo, Nigeria. Okay, there are 54. And of those 54, originally before Europeans got there, there were over 3,000 different ethnic groups. And we talked about that when we were discussing slavery. Why did tribes turn on other tribes? It's because they are not friends, they are enemies, and they don't see the future as in we should all band together. And so there are 1,000 different languages spoken. There are 3,000 different ethnic groups. And it's going to be a struggle for the Africans when the Europeans show up. So why did the Europeans, if they knew that people were there and they knew that this continent was absolutely huge, why did they not stay and take it over before? Well, the main reason is that they had their eyes on other places. North and South America, they discovered, and they believed that that land was going to be better for them. They also kind of had a fear of the Africans. They thought that they were cannibals, and they didn't think that they had any good land. Because remember, the top 1/3 of Africa is all desert. And so, other than maybe myths that they had heard of, they don't think that Africa really has anything to offer them. They also, by the point in which they are at the point where they could take over Africa, they already know about diseases. It wasn't like before where they think that God or the devil or witches are making them sick. They understand how diseases are spread, and so they're very cautious going into a new environment. So while disease discouraged them from going to a new place, religion encouraged them because they want to spread Christianity. They want to get people converted for money and for more humanitarian reasons. So at first they weren't quite interested in Africa, and there's going to be some things that change that. Okay, this is like one of my favorite maps. So if you look at Africa, the red lines are where the current African national boundaries are. And if you look at all the black lines, that's what I'm more focused on. All of those little black sections are where different tribes lived. So when we say that there are about 3,000 different tribes, these are their traditional homelands. So especially there towards the middle, which is where the resources are going to be the best, there are thousands of tribes. So if you think about that regarding today, there are a bunch of different people inside of all of these African countries, and the fact that they are different ethnicities is still causing issues today. I also want to show you that Africa is absolutely enormous. So the United States is the third largest country in terms of land area in the world, behind Russia and Canada. And look how little bitty the United States lives compared to Africa. It is absolutely enormous. And once the Europeans discovered that it wasn't all desert, they all raced to get there. Okay, here's another map kind of showing the same thing. This has the United States, India, China, with still some places left that aren't covered. So if they think that they're cannibals, they think that they're going to get diseases, then what changes their mind? Well, it actually comes in a nice gesture. So there is a Scottish man named Dr. David Livingstone. In the late 1860s, he wanted to go and convert the people of the middle part of Africa, what we would call the Congo. And so he became a doctor so that he could go to Africa. And he kind of got some publicity going into Africa because people thought he was crazy. And then people stopped hearing from him. He went missing. A lot of people assumed that he got eaten by the African people. So an American named Henry Morton Stanley was a reporter and got assigned to go try to find Dr. Livingstone. And his publisher, editor at the Boston Herald, I think it is, basically thought it's going to be a good story about how he was killed by the Africans. But that didn't happen. And Henry Stanley actually finds Dr. Livingstone living outside of Lake Tanganyika with the native people of that area. And he unfamously says, Dr. Livingstone, I presume. And he and Livingstone become friends. So Stanley and Livingstone are going to go around Africa, meeting different African tribes, which is really cool because he is going to, as a journalist, write about the different experiences that he has. And the writings that he does that are sent all over the world are going to be positive things about the Africans. So that's awesome because he's getting the truth about the Africans out there. They're not cannibals. They are somewhat religious. They have organized societies, etc. However, it's not all good because the fact that people didn't know what was going on in Africa actually protected the African people. So Livingstone and Stanley traveled all around Africa, showing all of these positive writings. Now that's great. So it got other people interested because the things that they were writing about are different resources. It's not all desert, etc. So the first European king to take interest in the middle part of Africa into the Congo is the Belgian king, King Leopold II. And King Leopold II had decent intentions. He wasn't going to go there and steal. He was going to go there and actually paid the journalist Stanley to go and buy up more land. However, his own government got mad that he spent money without their consent, and so they made him sell all of that land that he bought. The problem with that is that he sells it to business owners. The main purpose of business is to make money. And so that's going to start what is called the scramble for Africa. So now people have a better idea of what's in Africa, and they're going to go down there as quick as possible to try to gobble it all up. So why do the Europeans want Africa so bad? Well, there are three main reasons: economic, humanitarian, and political reasons. So the first one is economic, which means money. Of course, the Europeans want to make money, and they are going to finally see that Africa is more than just sand, and desert. In fact, Africa has some of the most diverse resources of any place in the world. They have oil, cotton, gold, diamonds, trees, animals, different animals they had never seen before, cropland, spices, rugs, and rubber plants. And so when the Europeans got wind that Africa has all of these things, they see dollar signs in their eyes and they go there to take it. The Europeans also see Africa as over 1 million people on the continent that can buy their goods and that they can trade with. So money, money, money flashing in their eyes. The next one is a little more complex. Humanitarian motives, they actually think that they're there to help the African people. And this is one that I struggle with because they think that they're there to convert them to Christianity so that they can be saved. And I'm not saying that many of them don't believe that, but what I am saying is that I think that many people said that and maybe had less honest intentions. The Catholic Church and Protestant churches are still looking to recover from the Reformation. They still want more converts. They feel like it's their duty to go into Africa and convert the people. But then they got us into this really uncomfortable situation called social Darwinism. And we've all heard of Darwin before, that the survival of the fittest, that people who are best adapted will survive. But they're going to take it to a weird extreme. They're going to say that the Europeans are superior to the Africans and they should just take over all their land, and this is just nature. We're going to be talking a little bit more about this, so I am going to move on. The third reason that Europeans are going to take things over is that they're running out of room. Europe is one of the smallest, with Australia, continents in the world, and they're literally running out of room. So they want to go there to get more land. They want to set up naval bases. They want to have land around the world. Great Britain is the worst or the best at that, whichever way you look at it. They are super small, so they get kind of a complex, and they want to continue to take places over. Europe also sees it as a competition. If Great Britain's getting some land, then France wants to get some land. If France is getting some land, then the new Germany, which is coming up, is going to want to get some land. They don't want to lose out on competing with their neighbors. Skipping through some videos. Last thing we're going to look at today is that they were competing so fiercely that the monarchs got together, and 14 different countries, including the United States, got together in Berlin in 1884 to say, we are not going to fight over Africa. Let's not kill each other over African countries. Let's make an agreement that if you have a place and you can show that you are actively bettering the people and the land, building roads and schools and giving jobs and things like that, that no other country is going to fight for you, fight against you for this land. And so it kind of works because the European countries don't fight each other. They just divide up all of Africa amongst them. Quick question, who do you think they didn't invite to this meeting? Any African country, as they don't really care about their input. And last thing here is by 1914, only the countries of Liberia and Ethiopia remained free of European control. So within about 30 years, all of Africa was taken over by Europeans except for 2 small places.